everybody. I left at 9 a.m. running around, and it's hot. It was hot at 9. It's hot now. Now it's around 10. I can't talk. Too many bugs. It's a good sign. The bugs are back. It's a good sign, good sign. I don't need that much protein. Gotta keep my mouth shut. Oh, I'll stop here and chat. This is a nice little place. There's a little barbecue pit. Oh. And a little spring. Well, hello friends. How's it going? Yeah, like I said, can't really talk to the cam and ride because bugs are back. It's a good sign, like I said. Nice. Love to see the bugs. But yeah, you run through clouds of them riding the bicycle. Anyway, I wanted to talk a bit more about war and peace, since I was talking about violence and whatnot. And after that, I'm going to talk about this guy Cook, Richard Cook. And I'll do that in a separate video, but he's an interesting guy. That's more on the economics questions, central banking, and, deep state conspiracies, and so on and so forth. Very interesting, though. It's interesting that people who have conspiracy theories about various things that I don't ascribe to, because I really haven't seen any evidence for it. Yeah, cover-ups are possible, but when you have to make a cover-up that includes billions and hundreds of billions of people, then I don't think it's really viable or to believe in a cover-up. So, maybe JFK Jr. has some things to say that I agree with about, his perspective on geopolitics or, social issues or whatever. But then there's all kinds of things that he goes on and on about that I think are utterly unreasonable and ridiculous. And so, what can you do? Nobody's perfect. So anyhow, War and Peace. Yeah, so you've read Pinker, Better Angels of Our Nature, and things like that. I've referred to Sapolsky a few times recently, but there's lots and lots of literature about War and Peace. Thing is, the great game, which is what I call it, is a global geopolitical game, and it's about control of resources and all resources. So the resources to control the resources, which means the financing and the people, the cannon fodder, as well as the administrative state, the people in various governmental institutions and non-governmental institutions and security state agencies and whatnot. This isn't conspiratorial, it's just the way things are structured and the way the system works. So it's not a big stretch, like I'm not looking for anything under my bed or anything in my closet. There's no boogeyman out there. There's just a system that evolved over thousands of years, and now it's turbocharged by industrial technology and high technology in the form of computing and so on, as well as science. For hundreds of years, science has been evolving and getting better. Our tools, the tools that we use for our scientific research, are getting better. you know, science basically as an institution, if you want to think of it that way, is fairly good. I mean, it works pretty damn well, you know, but that doesn't mean that a profits first value system behind science or a careerist mindset behind science is a good thing. I mean, you know, there are mal-incentives regarding everything, and those can get in the way. So yeah, AI and whatnot, gene editing and transhumanism, and just the ability to, like, in the future, maybe have a designer baby or something, which would be out of reach for most of us. But I always joke about the robots taking really good care of me, but I won't go there right now. War and peace, war and peace. So I think it can be reasonable to think that, you know, after World War II, at least in the United States, they, the players, the people involved in the great game, whether they like to call it that or not, obviously we have our own rhetoric and we have our own terminology for what we're doing. You know, I'm just a politician, you know, I work for the government, you know, the federal government, state government, local government, whatever. I'm a council person. I'm just trying to give back. I'm serving my country. I'm a soldier. That's all fine and dandy, but the way things are structured, you have certain incentives and values woven into the structure of the system. And these are very powerful incentives and very, very powerful value systems. So obviously religion is part of that as well. It's not really religiousness that make people goofy or violent or dangerous. It's getting together with your parochial mates every day at a service who like and hate certain particular things, who have certain prejudices, and reinforcing those dogmas and narrow-minded judgments within the group. So you're far more likely to be a nasty bugger if you attend church services all the time. It's just a fact. Do your own research. Anyway, been a lot of studies along those lines across cultures, basically. So, you know, your Zazen isn't going to kill you. Your Hinduism is going to make you nasty. Your mindfulness meditation isn't going to wreck your life. Your Catholicism, your evangelical church, or your Christianity. How absurd is it, obviously from a Nietzschean point of view, but also from a lot of other philosophers throughout time, to be a peacenik like Jesus might have been if you're looking at the Sermon on the Mount or the Beatitudes or whatever. Pacifist, you know, the least among you types, and people go, bah, humbug, that's ridiculous. How are you going to control resources? How are you going to get anything done? Build bridges, build twin towers. How are you going to bring twin towers down if you don't have power, if you're not in control of science and technology and engineering, you don't have the money? And as has been pointed out many times by lots of people, but Noah Harari recently, is that money is just a belief system. It's not, you know, a great relationship's built on trust that your international financial advisor is trying to get you to believe that he's a trustworthy guy, but we believe in the money, we believe in the Bitcoin, we believe in the Ethereum, we believe in the Dogecoin, we believe in the euro, we believe in the ruble, we believe in the renminbi, whatever. But we believe in this system of exchange in the banking system that, you know, we can get what we need, right? And we live at scale. So the whole world is a global economy now. It's been like that for a long time. So the British Empire, which is what the United States is now, has become and wants to maintain with its vassal state, the United Kingdom, and other allies. But it's the big empire now. But anyway, the idea of the, you know, Dutch East Indian Company or the British East India Company or any of these, you know, Belgians in the Congo or France in Africa or Indochina or whatever. You know, the problems that occurred in Indonesia and Vietnam. This is about, you know, geopolitics in a global economy where you need lots of resources to feed your industrial capability. So as Hitler noted, living space, but what he really meant was wheat fields and grain fields and oil wells, because you keep the technology, the high technology, in Germany, and then you sell the higher value products to the vassal states. You enslave everybody else, you eat their food, and you give them just enough to survive. One could say that, for your average American in the United States right now, that's how they live. They're given just enough to survive. If they have a home, because they don't have this housing first mentality that they do in Finland. You have to borrow money, you have to become enslaved by debt to get an education and get a home. And then you're just one or two payments away from losing it, right? We all know about that, but so it could be that now, the slaves are not just people in far-off countries, but people in our own country or countries. We're debt slaves, we're wage slaves, right? So the only way to maintain control over the resources, the vast resources that are taken from Russia and Ukraine and Africa and Asia and the Middle East and so on, South America, is to have military hegemony, just to be the toughest guy on the block, to have 800 bases around the world, to have almost 300,000 military personnel around the world, and tell people you're going to bank according to my conditions, using my SWIFT system and so on, and you're going to buy my government bonds, period, or you're our enemy, we're going to sanction you, we're going to encroach upon you, we're going to threaten you, we're going to bomb you, whatever. And you have to keep this military organization, all the military branches, fit for service. So you've got to be at war with some third world country like Afghanistan for 20 years, just to make sure that the machines work properly and that you're trained up to beat up on the little guy. I don't know if the US Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines could beat up on Russia right now, but that's something people have different opinions on, but we'll see, we'll find out. NATO will get involved probably sometime soon. If America can't have it all, fuck the world, let's blow it all up. But now, because we have a new Cold War, we can start to upgrade our nuclear armaments so that they're hypersonic missiles and there's no defense for them, so they're literally first strike weapons. And we can say, okay, there you go. He who has the most first strike weapons controls the universe. Anyway, is that a conspiracy? No, that's big business. And it's just the way the system's structured and the way the system rolls. It's the way it works. And man, if you were a holder of a lot of stock in military industrial complex and all the companies beneath the big companies that supply them with computer chips and machinery and consulting services and banking services and whatnot, if that was your stock portfolio, then you're making money while you sleep. Bravo for you. Good on you, mate. Come over here, buy a winery, and when I visit you, I'll bring you little, Japanese comic books, and you can give me a glass of wine or whatever. Treat me like a nice little pet. But so the violence is in our nature. If you read Pinker, and other people, you can do all kinds of archaeology to see how people died, 20,000 years ago, and whether they had wounds from weapons. And you can talk about the Iron Age and the Bronze Age, Iron Age, and flying a full metal jacket, steel, all you want. But it seems like, back in the day when, let's say, there was like maybe 5 million people on the planet, you had options. You could take your tribe and move to another place rather than fighting and killing, or you could be absorbed by the other tribe if you felt comfortable with that, or you could take over the other tribe either through negotiation, trade, or through violence. But there was a lot less reason for going to war with different tribal groups. It was dangerous enough just bringing down a mastodon, or, you know, defending yourself from saber-toothed tigers, or whatever they did in the Pliocene or whatever. But the thing is that as our world scaled up, you know, people learned how to farm and whatnot. Jared Diamond, whatever you're going to read about that kind of stuff. Guns, Germs, and Steel. There's lots of archaeological evidence that you know, war and civilization started and kingdoms started and so on. And if you're Curtis Yarvin, you think a corporate king would be better just because there were lots of kings for thousands of years. But having kingdoms didn't ensure peace or nonviolence or prosperity for anybody ever. And the kingdoms co-opted religious beliefs and religious institutions and went to war for hundreds of years. And people suffered and died. And back then people weren't literate. And now we have an information fire hose every single day. We don't know how to deal with the information, how to interpret the information, how to understand the information. But it's there, somebody's telling us what to think, so we think, you know, pretty cool because it's in here, it's out here, you know, I'm smart. And if somebody tells you that they're smart on cam, on YouTube, then maybe a lot of people just believe it. I'm not going to do that. I'm definitely not going to do that. But so we've had war for a long time. You know, you know about Troy. You saw the movie with Brad Pitt. And you've read some Shakespeare maybe. And like Chris Hedges said, you know, you need to know your Bible to be able to read Shakespeare and understand where he's coming from, because there's so many allusions to the Bible in Shakespeare. Wrathful gods of all ilk, you know, different types of religions over time, and how you use your faith and belief to give you the strength and courage to go out and murder and rape people and steal their shit. But in 2023, we're still doing it. So even though the better angels of our nature, you know, white, Western, educated, industrial, rich folks, weirdos like me and Steven Pinker, came from the Enlightenment and all that kind of stuff, and we're to blame for all of this, you know, Pax Americana and these wonderful smartphones we have, and the fact that less people are starving. But if you break it down statistically through duration and also per capita numbers and whatnot in various locations, we're still a pretty violent, messed up place with a lot of injustice. And I submit to you that with our current technologies and scientific understanding and all that stuff, it doesn't have to be that way. So we could do better by nature, we could do better by people, we could do better by Yemenis and Congo people. You don't have to be kidnapped as a child, told to murder your parents, and then I'm your family now, or whether you're in some South LA or something, and you know, we're going to beat you into the gang, you know, now we're your family. Or whether you're Unification Church, Reverend Sung Young Moon, and they beat everything out of you except the Unification Church, and now they're your family. You can go on and on and on, but in some of these things, obviously it's still violent, it's still war, and war is a huge business. It's probably the biggest business there is. When you think about all the resources you need to go to war, you know? I mean, you need everything, right? You need the logistics, the shipping, you need the oil, the gas, you need the people, the bodies, the blood, you need all the machines, the manufacturers, you need tons and tons of companies. To be on a war footing like Russia is now, Ukraine isn't really capable of it. The West gives Ukraine the tools to prosecute the war against Russia. Russia, yeah, it gets drones and stuff, it gets things from abroad, but it makes a lot of its own stuff. So we're just going to keep making those shells, and we're going to keep firing 20, 30, 40,000 of them a day and see how it all plays out. We'll see how far America wants to push it. I'm not a Putin fan. I don't think he had to invade Ukraine. I think if he would have just waited 5 years, America would be finished. Just from culture wars and stupidity, you know, just from the dumbing down and the idiocy, it would have constricted. Maybe Trump wins and he decides to pull out of all these places. Maybe he gets co-opted by the system, by the players. I don't know. I don't think he's that bright or capable of managing his way out of a paper bag. I think he was lucky to be born rich and connected. He did some things you can't take away from him, but in general, I don't think he's much of an agent to do anything against the great game or the deep state. But he can be intuitively right about things and still be an idiot. That's my opinion. But let's say he won. America kind of draws back within the wall, starts to try to become a big trading nation again, to leaders in business and culture and all that stuff. Boom. Putin doesn't have to worry about anything with Ukraine, NATO. It's like that whole game just ended and he didn't have to go to war. And plus, if he did think he had to, he probably could have marched right into Kyiv the first day, because there wouldn't have been all the pushback. America wouldn't have been up for it. But since it is, this war can go literally to the last Ukrainian or the last man on earth, because it could be that at some point the Polish have to go in, and then the Lithuanians have to go in, the Latvians, and everybody else. You have to rope the Romanians in and all of NATO, and then pretty soon you've got American air power over there and cruise missiles, and you've got a Balkans thing, or you've got a Syria thing that erupts from a fun little proxy war that's profitable to some to a World War III nightmare. So let's hope it doesn't happen, just like all of the climate deniers are going to hope that there's not an ice-free Arctic, and that even if there were, it wouldn't matter. Life will go on. You can have your monster truck and your steaks. Nobody's going to make you eat lab-grown meat or crickets. You're going to go on just like you have. The funny thing is about War and Peace and Steven Pinker and whatnot is it is a fact, if you were born in a rich Western country in the last 50 to 70 years, you grew up in the best of times. I mean, for most of us, right? Who had a little bit of money in the family and who had parents and a little bit of an education and whatnot. We have it all. But now you're so smart that you have to embrace Orthodox Christianity or meditation or whatever, because life doesn't have any more meaning for you. And you have to somehow transcend all the madness. Look, whatever works for you is great, but the madness isn't going to go away because you move to a farm in Southern Ireland and become an Orthodox Christian and kind of decide you're going to, or if you decide you're going to live in a commune in Mendocino and grow marijuana and be a green person and a vegan, you're not going to change the world if you have a podcast or if you're talking to people on YouTube. You're not going to change the world if you're an intellectual influencer or a politician. The only thing that's going to protect us from war and make peace is enough people getting together in their communities and pushing the players and telling them, we don't want war, we want peace. We want to create peace, we want to maintain peace. We want to disarm, we want to not spend so much money on military things, we want to cooperate, we want to trade, we want to learn from each other's culture. So it's fine with me if you're a Sam Harris meditation app person, or if you're an Orthodox Christian or an evangelical or whatever. Just don't get together in your little parochial, narrow-minded, myopic, dogmatic clique and decide you're going to hate on me or somebody else to the point where I have to send my people to die for the corporation, the big business, the great game. And trust me, that's what it is. We all need water and services and sewage and all that kind of thing. We all want to feel secure. We need police and so on and so forth. A judicial system. But what does law mean if it's all lawfare, like warfare, for ideological reasons that are really stupid and designed just to distract us and to keep us from looking at what's really important? Is there any reason to have pushed NATO so close to Russia with all the red flags going up that Russia didn't like it, just because we think Russia's a pussy. Vladimir Putin's a pussy. Putler's a pussy. We can do what we want. Oh, gee, it turns out he's not. It turns out he attacked Ukraine. Not our fault. It's all him. That's such a shallow, simplistic way to look at things that it just does my head in, really. I can't tolerate it. You have to understand that this whole thing is going, this machine is operating all the time, whether you like it or not. And we're all vulnerable to propaganda and to information sources that make us think in very strange ways. And the vast majority of us, including myself, are not the best critical thinkers. We can't do the math. We can't do the science. I have to teach myself by learning from Peter Attia and other sources how to read a science paper, just so I know what regression to the mean is and p-value and so on and so forth, so I can figure out, how to approach it and maybe get a better intuition at who's an expert, whether it's in geopolitics or virology or archaeology or whatever. All these domains, how can you be an expert in all of them? You can't, but you can train yourself to be intuitively capable, at the very least, of recognizing what expertise is. If somebody spent 40 years in a field and they're pretty damn good at it, well known for doing things, amazing things, and learning amazing things, and well respected in their community and the broader community, they might just be an expert that you can listen to. But listening to Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump and thinking they're experts is idiotic, much less Joe Biden or any of the other ones. It's tragic. You have somebody like Cornel West wants to come in and talk like Martin Luther King and like Jesus Christ. He won't get a vote, but at least he's talking about peace, which I appreciate. Maybe some people will listen to him.
Policy, demilitarizing of U.S. imperial policy. So we have a major clash, and I've got to convince not just Black Americans, I've got to convince my fellow Americans across the board that militarizing abroad is leading toward possible nuclear exchange. Militarizing abroad is taking away valuable resources that should be invested in healthcare, in decent housing, quality education, and in increasing the quality of the relations in the countries. The violence, the polarization, the gangsterization of American culture is a very sad thing to witness, my brother, and that has much to do with the lack of serious leadership in the White House, be it the Republican Party tied toward neo-fascism, exemplified by Trump, or Biden tied by very much mediocre milquetoast neoliberalism, exemplified by Biden.
We're going to have more of the same. So that means war is with us. Our violent nature is with us. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's been there from the start. It's hardwired into the way we are as animals that can communicate, that work together in social groups, depend on each other, creative beings that can make amazing things. There's just so much that's special about our species, but we're also prone to being manipulated and to becoming violent and fearful. All of it's interconnected, whether it's your endocrine system and your brain's, everything, the whole thing. And it's such a cliche to say it, but it's absolutely true. Now, we can destroy the Earth, and maybe Elon Musk and some of his friends can find a bunker somewhere. Then they can come out and, terraform the Earth, so make it into a country club for the elite or something. But you and I won't be here, neither will your children. So I don't think it's a good plan, right? Nobody's going to go to Mars. We're not going to be a multi-planet species. To get good AI and gene editing and all this kind of stuff, it's going to take us thousands of years more to sort it all out if we go slow and if we inject wisdom into the game and take out all of the financial incentives, all the mal-adjusted value systems. We have to extract that from the system. Find a way to incentivize people that isn't just only or primarily, most importantly, financial. We'll figure it out, but we need time. If we have an ice-free Arctic, okay, you're a climate science denier, okay, global warming, not a thing. Fine, man, go eat a steak. I don't care. But when that ice-free Arctic hits for a couple of years in a row, you're going to see these feedback loops happen. It's going to affect human habitat. And that means we're not going to be able to eat, which means we're going to get really nasty really quick. Okay, you're a prepper. You're going to have enough ammo. Yeah, maybe for the first asshole that comes and tries to take your shit. Then when a bigger game of assholes come and try to take your shit, you either join that gang or you're dead. You know, see The Walking Dead. We're zombies because we don't pay attention, we don't give a shit. Because we're too well entertained and too easily entertained and too easily distracted. So that's why we're zombies. And when a bigger gang comes for you, oh yeah, you got a militia group? You got lots of ammo for if Trump doesn't get elected this time? What about the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines? Who do they work for? Where do they get their money? Where do they get their incentives? Where do they get their ideology? Where do they get their belief system? Where do they get their maladjusted value systems? And they're pretty well motivated and well trained. They're going to come and they're going to blow up your little militia group, and then all kinds of conspiracy theories are going to come up. People are going to, woe is me, the poor little guy. You know, he just wanted to make a statement by blowing up the Oklahoma Federal Building. You know, come on. Yeah. Granddaddy, first President Bush, is a criminal. He's like the perfect poster boy for a player of the great game. He comes from a long line. You may love them. They may be your hero, which is fine. But this great game of yours is going to get us all killed eventually. Why? Because our science, engineering, and technology isn't governed by wisdom or love or community or concern for other people or life on Earth. It's primarily a profit-generated thing or motivated thing. So once our equipment, technology, and science become really, really dangerous, unpredictable, and difficult to control, so that even the great apparatus of the players of the great game can't sort it all out, it becomes a black box even to them. And as more and more people gain access to AI and CRISPR-Cas9 and whatever, more and more accidents can happen. See Daniel Schmachtenberger, if you will. We're fucked. Accidents will happen. See Wuhan, China. Was it lab? Did it come out of the lab or not? I don't know. Cover up? I don't know. But the evidence will come out eventually and we'll know. But chances are gain-of-function research had something to do with it. It's just a dangerous thing. But we continue to do that. Why? Because of the profit motive. It's not a big conspiracy. Pharmaceutical companies need to make money, and people who invest in those companies want to get ahead of pandemics and outbreaks so that they can have a cure for it. So what if this disease comes along? What do we need to cure it? Well, let's do some research. You know, you're getting ahead of it by creating a dangerous disease. That's not a conspiracy. I don't know what happened. I'm not saying it happened that way. I'm just saying that's what people do in the corporate business. Are they going to create new antibiotics or new drugs that aren't big profit centers? No, why would they? They have shareholders to answer to. Their primary fiduciary responsibility is to their shareholders, not to you. Now, of course, they might not have a market for their earbuds or whatever if they're not good quality ones. Not all business is bad or corrupt or evil or anything like that. Trade and capitalism per se or whatever. But we have to get in control of this. You don't want to be a democracy. You want to leave it up to Yarvin's CEO King to decide and the elites behind him. They're not going to have a deep state. You want to follow them? Follow whoever you want to follow. Go ahead, whatever. I can't change that. But I'm just saying, if you do make educated, healthy people who can think clearly, what you're going to have at the end of the day is potential for a real democracy to happen, where people locally and internationally do have a say in how things are governed and how we utilize our resources and how we protect our ecosystems and habitats and treat our oceans and our Amazon jungle. You know, climate scientists are debating on whether the Amazon is going to die before we have no more ice. Go figure. Well, how long does that take? Who knows? Will it ever happen? Who knows? But the fact that there's good data behind it and good evidence to think about it should raise a red flag or an alarm or something. Shouldn't Paul Revere be running around screaming from his fucking Humvee or Cadillac sports car or whatever? I mean, it's all there, but we're not going to do anything because we're well entertained, we're well distracted, and we're well, you know, I mean, we're addicts, all of us. They're addicted to this, that, and the other thing. I am. I raise my hand. Guilty as charged. So, war and peace. War is with us. It's in us. It's inside our being, our imagination, our hopes and dreams, our psyches, our mythologies, our religions. It's right in there, on the forefront, making war. And it's exciting, and it's romantic, and it's philosophically red meat. Peace, we want peace, right? We want safety and security and peace. But making peace is harder than making war. And maintaining peace is harder. And creating a real democracy, which, however you want to define it or structure it or call it, is really difficult. Did they have one ever in history? I don't know. But the robber barons are still with us. They didn't go anywhere. You read 19th century books about economics and what philosophy and so on. Nothing's changed. We just have better technology and better science. We have a bigger, more efficient global economic system due to oil and gas and great things like shipping and container ships. You know, somebody invented that container system. What a genius. I mean, thank God I can get my Amazon shit overnight. Warehousing, computer databases, you know, all of it's amazing. And it's been, you know, there has been some fantastic breakthroughs in medical science that help people. But now we can afford to eat our way into heart disease and diabetes and other problems. I can afford to drink myself to death. I don't have to, you know, leaving Las Vegas, I don't have to do it in a weekend. I can spend 10, 20, 30 years drinking myself to death. I know one of the big factors of my demise is going to be having been a real wine lover and party animal and lover of social drinking. It doesn't do my body any good. It's poison. But if I regulate it, if I try to stay, you know, not drink often or drink little, I can maintain my health maybe for another decade or so until Uncle Sam blows my ass right up. But whatever, we're all going to die. We all know that. We're all afraid of death, so we need salvation. We need to be saved and forgiven. We need heaven, and we need transcendence, and we need to understand that life is suffering, and that if we can just empty our mind, consciousness is an illusion. There's no such thing as free will. If we can just liberate ourselves from all the bullshit and transcend it, we're going to be fine. One little individual walking peacefully like a monk through the world, like Kwai Chai Kane, doing good things for people. How romantic is that? Well, people in Yemen are getting whacked. Boko Haram in Africa is kidnapping students and turning them into prostitutes and giving them AIDS and making them pregnant and wrecking their lives forevermore. Because once you wreck a child or even a child's parent, they're wrecked for life. Good luck putting them back together again. It's Humpty Dumpty. You can't do it. Some of us are only a little bit wrecked and traumatized, so we can work on it over time, and maybe we can heal and get ahead of it and gain some control over ourselves and have a healthy life. Not all of us grew up in loving families. So anyway, not all of us grew up with food to eat and whatnot. But anyway, that shit still happens. I don't want it to happen. It bothers me, it makes me want to cry. Not you, you don't care, you hate those other people, you want to destroy the Dems, those commies, whatever. And that gets you up in the morning, that keeps you going, that keeps you working hard, that keeps you, excited about life, and you can go to your church and commiserate with other like-minded people about how the other people are coming to wreck your world. And remember, it's a big world, and America has 400 million people in it. China has 1.3 million people in it or more, 1.4 million, Oh, Jesus. Okay, Mr. So-and-so, you're not that important. You're a big professor from an American university. Well, fuck off. You're not that important. We got to solve these problems together as Homo sapiens, or we lose it together. Yeah, okay, we're not going to lose it for years. Who cares? I don't know why I care. But anyway, never mind. It's okay. I'll live, I'll die. You'll live, you'll die. That's the nature of things. Violence and war has been with us all along from day one. Our closest genetic ancestor, is also violent. Go figure. I wouldn't call a tiger or a lion killing a gazelle violent. That's just, the nature is pretty nasty. When you have to eat people to eat other things to live, certain things are going to suffer for a minute while they're dying. Maybe it hurts a little bit. There's a little bit of fear there when the lion's on your tail and choking you out before ripping you apart and ingesting you. And why did God make it that way? I don't know. God works in mysterious ways. And people who interpret what God does, interpret God's work in mysterious ways. I can't figure it out. But anyway, there you have it. Life is full of suffering and violence and sickness and all that kind of thing. These horror stories continue because these jackasses who play the great game don't know any other way of being. And you probably have to sit down with them for years before they could really empathize with your perspective or with somebody like my perspective. They think Cornel West is a joke. They're not even worried about him. All they want to do is make sure Trump's in prison so he can't screw up the operating system of the great game. I think he's an idiot. I'd rather have a better guy screwing up the operating system for the great game. But if he were competent, and if he could throw a monkey wrench or shift the system, I wouldn't be surprised if he got assassinated, he or she. Seems like players can do that anytime. Violence is one of the main tools. You can drop a cruise missile on somebody in Iraq, an Iranian general, no big deal. You can kill an American citizen abroad, not a problem. Who knows who killed Kennedy? I think I do. I'm not really into the conspiracy story, but whatever. Anyway, good people get whacked, especially if they're not going along with the program. And anyone who's tried to fit in at the office or at the university understand what I'm talking about. You go along to get along, or you get whacked. You get booted, you get ostracized, you don't move up the ladder, you don't get any opportunities, Whether you're in Hollywood or trying to make movies or whatever you do in life, there are players in that domain. They run the system. They structure the system through their will to power, very Nietzschean, through their Machiavellian dictates and shenanigans. And they gain control, they gain power, and then they either let you in to play or they don't, or you become one of their servants, or somebody like an admin type for them, a clerk, a support system, a masseuse, a tennis coach, a golf coach, or whatever. But it's those guys who have the purse strings and tell you whether you can live or die. And if you're good at it, you get to abuse women and so on, and get away with it for decades. Until Me Too comes along, and then you get in trouble. But anyhow, I think you understand me, so I'll sum up it one more time. Sorry for that. War is with us. It's inherent. Violence is with us. It's inherent. Making peace is really hard. We have to want it. And then we have to do the hard work. I doubt we will. That's my 2 cents on War and Peace. Now go read Dostoevsky. Bouillon tea. Out.